because that's what happens with our trauma is that we pass it on. How does that tend to happen? How do we pass on trauma?
Oh my goodness, I love the term. That's the term transgenerational trauma. I mean, especially through parenting. I think we think, oh, well, I was fine. We think we were fine, and we
Mm,
parent the same way. We don't question, we don't reflect. I love also one of Dan Siegel's um, messages in his research that he's found is that what leads to the well-being of the child is the parent's ability to reflect and make sense of their own upbringing.
mm,
Most of the time we're just carbon copy. We're just reacting. We're
yeah.
just we don't question. We don't take that time to reflect and sit with our own feelings. And we're
Mm,
just doing the same thing, not even realizing it.
yeah.
And it's
We're
so
kind of
easy
an
to pass it on.
yeah, kind of an autopilot.
Right.
If we haven't processed it ourselves,
Right.
we're just gonna yeah, yeah.
You're just going to pass it on.
Pass it
And
on.
then you're going to
So,
dismiss it. So then when they try to come to you, you're just
yeah,
going to say, because you didn't have that safe place
yeah,
to
yeah,
process it and make sense of it, you're not going to let them have that safe place. And then they're going to just pass it on again and learn.
yeah.
Because ultimately, a child they don't want to disappoint their parent. They are terrified. That's like death to them, disappointing their
Yeah.
parent. A lot of parents don't realize that. And it's very sad to witness.
I think
And then a lot of,
it's also really I've got a growing child, I think it's also really it's hard to hear when your child has a complaint or tells you this is what you did and it hurt me. It's
Mhm,
so hard to hear that as a parent. And I
mhm,
think the first instinct is to defend yourself. And I think one of the things that I've learned as a parent is
mhm,
to really try and put that defense down and listen and
mhm,
really listen and
mhm.
hear. And that I think makes a huge difference because I think it's coming back to that, when you're sort of saying, we need an opportunity to process what we've gone
Mhm.
through. If we can actually go to a parent and say to that parent, we've got a safe relationship with that
Mhm.
parent, and that parent has
Yes.
made it safe emotionally for us to come
Mhm.
and talk to them about our feelings, then
Yes.
that doesn't become a trauma because they get to
Right.
process it with their parent.
Yes. Someone they feel safe with, and they have that access to that parent more than anybody, right? It's the
Yeah.
parent-child relationship is the best intervention. That's why
Mm,
even though I do family work, parents often want to just give their kids to me, and I'm like, I'd much rather work with you, the parent, and coach you so that because you have 24/7 with them. I want
yeah.
you to learn these skills so you can be there for your child because
Mm,
that's going to take them and your whole family to a whole other level.
yeah. So I guess one of the things that I was really curious about, you may or may not want to answer
Mhm.
this. So
Thanks for
but
that. So,
yeah, so I was sort of prefacing
take
that.
a breath in.
I remember this post that you did, and I kind of took a breath in. I remember going, oh, because I hadn't heard this before. And it was I think it was something along the lines that trauma can be cured. Do you remember that
Oh, I
post?
remember that one. Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
Is that something you want to speak to?
Sure,
Yeah,
absolutely. So, I mean, I think it comes back to what is normal. I mean, what's your definition of cure? What's your definition of normal? I mean, I think we're all exceptional. I mean, I don't think, I think we're all stars. I think we're all born brilliant and with unique tendencies. And so, when I say cure, I actually just came up with this some of my clients because they think, oh, I won't have these symptoms. I won't have panic attacks. I'll be able to sleep at night. You think about all these symptoms that you have. There's a whole host of them. And
yeah.
yes, the goal is to reduce them,
Mm,
and I do successfully. I've personally been able to reduce many of mine. I'll be honest, I don't believe I will ever get rid of all the
yeah,
symptoms. I don't think that's possible. So I guess
yeah.
if your
Okay.
definition of
Yeah.
cure is
There's no more
no, then
symptoms.
no
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
symptoms, right? I would say no. However, the reason why I still believe that healing and there is a cure, a little saying I have with my clients is, if we can't cure it, we can curate it.
Right.
You know, you get to curate your life. And at
Mm,
the end of the day, you know, it's like we all have a recipe for our unique body,
mm,
whether it's traumatized body or not. You
yeah.
have a homeostasis that needs to be nurtured and celebrated. And so whether you've had trauma or not, I'm still going to help you identify how much water you need, how much sleep do you need, how, you know, what are your processes that you need when something activating happens. I mean, everyone gets activated. You know, you're
Yeah.
driving in a car, road rage. I mean, everybody gets activated. What is your rhythm? What are your rituals? What are you going to do? And for everyone, you can find that recipe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you're
Absolutely.
so attuned with your body, yeah, it might change, but then you're going to adapt and you're going to, you know, tweak it here. You know, we go through
Yeah.
life. I mean, human development. That's why I love having my master's in human development. I mean, the only thing that's constant is change. I mean, change
Yeah.
is always happening. And so why don't we just learn to embrace being uncomfortable
Mm,
and that things are going to change and then come up with your own recipes and
yeah.
keep adapting. So that's kind of what I mean
Yeah.
by it.
By that.
I believe that's possible. And I've seen such amazing
Yeah.
growth. I mean, in my work. I mean, it blows me away.
That's why we do it,
The
right?
the yeah,
Yeah.
it
I mean,
works. I
I mean,
mean,
I
it
I
works.
mean, when you look at one of the things I guess looking back on, because you probably don't know, but I also have a whole, history of trauma as well. I think a lot of people who are therapists or in that
Are. Oh,
sort of
yes,
helping profession, we have
exactly.
got that because we've been through it. We want to help people
Mhm.
who are going through it. Um, and I just remember, a long time back, sitting down with a therapist and saying to her, will this ever change? And I just remember feeling that hopelessness because I think the thing about especially complex trauma, when you've had multiple traumas over your life and you are still reacting and reacting and getting activated, as you were saying, you know, you
Mhm.
you often can feel like you're in this vicious cycle and is it ever going to
Mhm.
change, and the thing she said to me gave me the most hope and insight. And so just going to share it now is just, and you'll hear it. You'll know what I'm talking about. But she talked to me about how that the brain is plastic. It's not hardwired. We used to think that it
Absolutely.
was. We
Right.
used to think that it just was exactly, but then we
Mhm.
got to know that actually we can change the pathways in our brain. It's
Mhm.
hard work. It takes time and it takes a lot of
Mhm.
work and effort, but it's possible. And so that's what you're
Yes.
talking about is
Yes.
actually choosing a new pathway and making that new
Yes.
pathway strong and
Mhm.
that old pathway weak. So the old pathway
Absolutely.
doesn't disappear completely.
Exactly.
It's still
Right.
there, but
Right.
it's the other one's got really strong.
That's
And
right.
that's what
Right.
we're
And like,
working. Yeah.
absolutely, that's it.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It totally is plastic. I know it's you
Yeah.
can adapt it, you can rewire it, and that's the thing. And that's why it's coming up with these rituals that you're now choosing and being conscious aware of that, yeah, you know, you might still get reacted, but you're getting out much faster. You're able to
Mm.
see it,
Yeah.
and there's so much positivity. I mean, I would rather I found people who've experienced trauma with the depth. They have the biggest hearts in the
Mm.
world, and they see
Yeah.
things that most people can't see.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
beautiful to me.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
me, like, oh, there's a depthness of life that's achieved,
Mm.
and that no one, but very few, they will never know
Yeah.
because they haven't had these experiences.
Yeah.
And so, absolutely, yeah, it is so possible to, and that's why I often say, and then actually it was a Bruce Perry research. It was a long time ago, but he mentioned that it takes on average 21 times to repeat the same skill, whatever that new skill is that you're working on, that new belief, whatever that is, in a row to create that secure connection in the brain to
Yeah.
make lay down that new superhighway that you want to build.
Yeah.
Um, and within the relationships. That's why a lot of people will be like, "Oh, I tried that, it didn't work," and I'll be like, Okay, did you try it 21 times in a row? Because unfortunately, learning, that's why kids are in school. Learning
Yeah.
is repetition, repetition, repetition. And
Yeah.
it's messy. And you're going to go back 100 times. And it's about getting back up again. And it
Yeah.
does work. And
Yeah.
everything that I recommend are healthy things. You're
Yeah.
not going to hurt anybody.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's going outside, taking 3 deep breaths. It's smelling your favorite smell. I mean, there's a whole host of beautiful, easy. I say easy, but we know how hard it is when you're
Yeah.
in that
Yeah.
state. I don't like to use that word because it's work. But then when you were saying it is work, it is absolutely a
I
lot of
think
work.
what you mean is
However,
that it's simple, but it's hard. It's
right,
simple, but it's hard. Yeah.
and it's all energy at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So whether at least when you're doing and there are many tools. I love it. There's so many tools out there.
Yeah.
These will get effect. You will have results, and it all takes energy. But
Mm.
this energy will lead to good stuff. But it doesn't feel like it. I know
Yeah.
it's so
Yeah.
hard.
It is. It's hard work. But honestly, it's worth it, isn't it? It's
It
worth
is.
it. The work is worth it. Because of the change, the meaningful life that you can have, the not
Mhm.
passing it on to your kids that you can experience,
Right.
right? Um,
Yes.
no, I've been loving that. I've been seeing this around on social media that, people talking about the trauma stopped with me. I don't know if you've
Yes,
seen
that
that on
image.
social media.
Yes, I have.
Really love that because that's really beautiful and it's sad that
Mhm.
that they experienced trauma, but that they didn't pass it on. Is just
Right.
so so
Which you may have used the word epigenetics. I mean, that's what the beauty of epigenetics is. It's that gene, like many people think, well, it's in my genes,
mm,
many things, which it is. But they found that your environment, that's why providing a safe,
yeah,
healthy environment can turn the switch on and off of those gene
of those
expressions.
things exactly. Yeah,
So it's the potential
yeah.
it really is possible.
Yeah, and
Um,
that's the hopeful message, I think, for all of us who have gone through, no matter what the trauma is or how significant it is, that there is hope for that,
mhm.
even though it seems really hard. I
It's
guess I'm just wondering as well, have you got any advice around, I guess, finding a therapist? Because obviously, you're not available. I do some counseling, but I'm also just wondering from your point of view, because what I'm aware of, and this is that a lot of counselors feel comfortable working with trauma.
Mhm.
However, I'll say
Mhm.
it carefully.
Yes. Yes.
um, However, a lot of a lot of clients are not necessarily experiencing progress. And so
Mhm.
for those people who feel like, well, I tried counseling, it didn't help. And
Right.
there'll be a lot of people who've with complex trauma in that situation. Is there some advice in terms of therapy, types of therapy or approaches to
Mhm.
therapy that you would recommend that they find?
Yes. Yes. Well, first off, that's also I love somatic experiencing. So if you see anyone who's a somatic experiencing practitioner, I highly recommend, and I recommend Peter Levine's book he wrote with Patty. I forgot her last name, but it's Trauma Proofing Kids. Excellent book. It's a thin book, trauma proofing kids, but Levine is the one who developed somatic experiencing. Um, EMDR, if someone's been certified, I'm certified in EMDR. That would be, you would know, because you want to know that they're trauma informed. You might want to
Mm,
ask them how, I offer I offer a free intake for clients for 20 minutes consult
mhm.
because you're not a fit for everybody. And I would ask if the therapist offers a consult
Yeah,
so that you can ask them this question, kind of get
yeah,
them ready to know that it's so important. You're interviewing them. This is a huge
100%.
commitment. And I want to
Yeah.
empower people. You know yourself better and you come in with questions. And you can often, there's a nice list out there if you Google questions to ask your therapist, but
Hmm.
ask them if they are trauma informed, how come they believe so, ask them where they went to school, what their training is in, what's the models they use. And a therapist should be able to answer those. And then you want to feel comfortable. with
Yeah.
their answers. And if you're not feeling good in that first, if something's not feeling right, I would
Mm.
try somebody else. It's so
Yeah.
important
Yeah, it
um,
is. Because I
to do
think
that.
sometimes people give up on, like, sometimes they try one counselor, then another counselor,
Right.
and sometimes they just give up completely on counseling or
Hmm.
therapy,
Yeah, I know.
because of that experience. So obviously we want to try
Absolutely.
and make that experience more effective for them. So
Right.
somatic experience now in New Zealand,
Somatic experiencing,
experiencing
EMDR.
EMDR.
If someone is trained in EMDR, they will definitely be trauma informed.
Now
Anything.
what
Oh, then
yeah.
Bruce Perry is the neurosequential. He's if you go to his child, I forgot it's NET, I think. Those are qualified trauma specialist therapists. Um, Trying to think of the other ones. I mean, and I mean, even actually, they did a study that they showed that after the 9/11 in
Mhm.
America, that like the number one thing that people did was, I think it was yoga. I mean, yoga is huge. You know,
Yeah.
there are trauma
Yeah.
informed, because I also agree. I've been to yoga instructors who aren't
Yeah.
trauma informed, and I've
Yeah.
been to yoga instructors who are trauma informed. But finding a safe place, obviously, but
Yeah.
movement,
Mm.
getting some
Yeah.
movement in your
Movement
life
into your
is
body.
very important.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And the reason for that is, can you explain
Well,
to the
so
listener?
I will.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
animals in the wild actually don't get to you imagine a life of an animal in the wild. They're under prey threat constantly, and they actually don't get traumatized because when they go into that deep freeze, they'll just run it off. They'll
Mm.
go bathe in the water. You know, they're in nature. They go
Yeah.
naturally do all these things to release, because it takes on average 20 once those when I was talking about the flipping of the brain, once all those stress hormones come into our body, it takes like 20 minutes for that to discharge.
Mm.
Bare minimum 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I've had periods of my life where something made me that angry for like a week. I think the more
I
complex
hear you.
trauma you've experienced, you're stewing in
Yeah.
those, and it brings up all these other things. But at bare
Mm.
minimum is 20 minutes. And so when you move the body, you
Mm.
discharge that energy, you release it, and it helps move it, and it helps bring
Yeah.
lightness to your body.
Yeah.
In fact, standing on a balance board, that's been one of the recommendations that your body to get grounded, just standing on something to balance, because you can't think about the past and future. Your
Mm.
body is naturally going to come to the present moment,
Yeah.
to stand on a balance. So movement is really key to get
Yeah.
that all going.
I love the
Um,
way you've explained that. Thank you. That's so cool.
yeah.
Is there anything else you think is really important to say before we finish up today?
Be a present. Be present. I mean, I put the A in the middle in parentheses because when you're in the present moment, and that's the hard thing about trauma
Yeah.
and compassion. I think compassion is the other most important. To sprinkle self-compassion, being kind to ourselves, because if we get mad at our own selves and we join that, we just are creating more of those hormones, and we're beating our own self up, and it sucks. I know, name it to tame it. Yet it's so important to be compassionate to yourself as soon as possible, and then you'll be present. And
Yeah.
that's why music, just thinking, what are my favorite one is five things. You look at your five
Yeah.
hands and you go, what are five things I see? What are four things I hear? What are three things I can smell? Two things I can um, taste. One thing I taste. I'm missing a sense. I always forget one sense, but you go through all your senses,
Touch. I think you
and then
got
that
touch
grounds you in the
somewhere.
present.
Yeah.
Touch, yes, touch. What are right? I usually do. So what are four things you could touch? Like
Yeah.
feel the
Yeah.
hardness of the table. Is it cold? Is it hot? Because then you'll be present, and then when you're present, you can be a present for all the people in your relationship,
Yeah.
and it's a give and take. It's giving. So that's when I say it's simple and easy to heal trauma. That's really what it is. It's just following that formula. Name, validate how you're feeling. You're not crazy. I'm
Yeah.
sure it makes sense if we can connect the dots to something. Um, and we don't know yet, but I can guarantee it makes sense to something.
Mm.
And to be kind to yourself and do
Yeah.
something that makes you feel good
Mm.
in your mind and body.
Yeah.
Um, and
Thank
repeat
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so
over and
much.
over.
Yeah, it's
You're
amazing. This
welcome.
is just a really amazing conversation. I really, really
Yes.
appreciate the wisdom and knowledge that you have imparted
Thank you so much.
to our listeners. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.